Do you know what it feels like to be wrongly judged before a word is even spoken? The scorching sun beats down on the gas station as Monique Harris fills her tank, her hands steady, eyes scanning the horizon, aware of every movement, every shadow, and every glint of mirrored sunglasses that track her. Sheriff David Thompson steps out from his patrol truck, the badge on his chest catching the sunlight, a symbol of authority and preconceived notions, his gaze locking onto Monique with a certainty that chills the air. He approaches with measured strides, each step punctuated by the hiss of the gas pump and the distant hum of cars passing by on the asphalt, his voice cutting through the mundane summer sounds, accusing her of something she didn't do. Monique pauses, takes a deep breath, her chest rising and falling in rhythm with the quiet resolve she holds inside, her eyes calm but alert, a stark contrast to the tension radiating from the sheriff. She notices the way he narrows his eyes, how his hand lingers just above his belt, the subtle sway of his posture trying to command the scene, yet revealing his underlying uncertainty when faced with her unflinching presence. Every bystander seems frozen, their whispers barely audible, the smell of gasoline thick in the air, as if the station itself holds its breath, waiting for the inevitable shift in power. Monique subtly slides her phone from her bag, its screen reflecting a sliver of sunlight, recording every word, every movement, a silent witness capturing truth against assumption, capturing the moment that will unravel the story of authority and integrity. The sheriff leans closer, his voice low but tense, each word carrying the weight of false accusation. But Monique meets it with steady composure, letting the seconds stretch, the silence pressing against the accusation like a tangible force. The camera of imagination pans from her unwavering stance to the flicker of doubt beginning to cross his face, the rigid lines of certainty beginning to soften under the quiet persistence of truth, the narrative tension thickening as the summer air swirls around them. Monique's presence alone, calm, dignified, unyielding, begins to rewrite the script of the moment, transforming an ordinary gas station into a stage for a confrontation not of fists or anger, but of moral clarity, a test of justice and recognition. The hum of the pumps, the distant tires on asphalt, the rustle of leaves beyond the lot, all fade into the background, leaving only the heartbeat of anticipation, a rhythmic echo that mirrors the unfolding reckoning, every detail sharpened, every breath counted. She steps forward slightly, just enough to convey strength without aggression, her eyes locking on the sheriff's as if silently stating that appearances can be deceiving, that authority is not always truth, and that patience and awareness can shift even the most rigid balance of power, setting the stage for a story that promises revelation, confrontation, and the subtle but undeniable triumph of quiet integrity. The summer heat seems to press even closer as Monique Harris keeps her stance, every movement deliberate yet calm, the phone in her hand still recording, a silent testimony to the unfolding tension. Sheriff David Thompson steps back slightly, his expression shifting, a flicker of doubt crossing his face as he realizes the certainty he carried moments ago is beginning to crack. Around them, the gas station hums with quiet background sounds, the click of the gas pump, the soft whir of air conditioning from the convenience store, the distant rumble of tires along the highway, all blending into a subtle soundtrack that frames the confrontation without distraction. Monique lets a small, controlled breath escape, feeling the weight of observation from bystanders, yet remaining focused on the truth she knows she holds. She meets the sheriff's eyes, unwavering, her gaze conveying a quiet authority that seems to grow with every second, a stark contrast to his tense, shifting posture. He adjusts his stance, clears his throat, trying to regain control, but the initial momentum of accusation has slowed, the narrative subtly tilting. Monique steps slightly closer, her motion smooth and deliberate, signaling that she is neither afraid nor submissive, her presence alone commanding attention, turning what should have been an ordinary exchange into a moment loaded with moral gravity. Every small gesture, from the tilt of her head to the placement of her hand over the phone, communicates a silent confidence, a patient strength that begins to influence those watching, drawing their attention, creating a shared understanding of the imbalance that had existed. David frowns, realizing that the dynamics of the encounter have changed, that authority does not automatically translate to correctness, and that the weight of perception can shift in the presence of composed resilience. Monique's lips part slightly, not in words yet, but in preparation, the anticipation building as she prepares to reveal the crucial truth that will challenge the assumptions in the room, a slow and deliberate unraveling of the story that had begun with accusation. The sunlight flickers across the lot, the shadows of pumps and vehicles stretching long and thin across the asphalt, painting the scene with a visual tension that mirrors the emotional stakes. Each sound, each movement, each measured breath becomes part of a larger rhythm, guiding the unfolding of justice through presence, patience, and awareness. Bystanders glance between them, the subtle change in energy palpable, sensing that the narrative has shifted and that the resolution will not be immediate, that the power of observation and the persistence of truth are beginning to dominate over impulse and bias. The sheriff shifts his weight, his hand lowering slightly as the clarity of the moment begins to sink in, and Monique, standing tall, finally allows herself a slight, confident nod, an acknowledgement that the next step will reveal the truth and that the careful orchestration of awareness and calm strength has placed her firmly in the center of an unfolding reckoning. The summer air vibrates with anticipation, the ordinary gas station transformed into a stage where perception, patience, and quiet moral authority hold the attention of all, creating a crescendo that promises revelation and reflection, a prelude to the unfolding resolution that will leave an indelible mark on everyone present. Monique Harris straightens her shoulders, the phone still. Recording, capturing the subtle changes in the sheriff's demeanor as the tension thickens around them. David Thompson exhales slowly, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, realizing that the certainty he carried like armor moments ago is beginning to slip, and the quiet power of composure and observation is shifting the weight of authority in the lot. The summer air hums with the faint buzz of fluorescent lights from the convenience store and the distant rhythm of passing traffic, each sound magnifying the intensity of the encounter. Monique's gaze does not waver, her calm presence radiating a sense of controlled awareness, drawing the attention of everyone nearby, a silent statement that integrity can be louder than accusation. She adjusts the grip on her phone, ensuring that the recording captures every nuance, every misplaced word, and every micro-expression that reveals the sheriff's faltering confidence. The shadows from the gas pumps stretch long across the asphalt, creating lines that divide the space between them, mirroring the invisible divide of assumption and truth, bias and clarity, that has quietly grown in this brief encounter. A soft breeze stirs, carrying with it the scent of gasoline and warm asphalt, mingling with the muted sounds of murmurs from bystanders, their attention fully captivated by the unfolding dynamic. Monique takes a measured step closer, her motion deliberate but gentle, the subtle shift emphasizing that presence alone can command recognition and redirect focus without force. David's lips press together, his posture slightly slackening as the realization of overreach begins to settle in, each second extending, a moment suspended between accusation and awareness, a silent reckoning forming in the space they occupy. The camera of imagination pans over Monique's composed expression, the glint of determination in her eyes, and the way the sunlight catches on the phone screen, reflecting her deliberate control of the narrative that has begun to bend the encounter in her favor. She tilts her head just slightly, an almost imperceptible movement that carries the weight of confidence, patience, and strategic calm, suggesting that what is about to unfold is not about confrontation, but the unveiling of truth. The sheriff shifts uncomfortably, glancing at the few people who have paused to watch, sensing that his authority is being quietly questioned, that the perception of control is being undone without aggression. Monique Harris shifts her weight slightly, the summer heat pressing against her skin, yet her composure does not falter, every breath measured and deliberate, as if she is syncing with the rhythm of the lot itself, the subtle sounds of the gas pumps, the faint murmur of customers inside the convenience store, and the occasional squeak of tires along the asphalt creating an almost cinematic backdrop to the tension building between her and Sheriff David Thompson. His posture tightens, a subtle frown forming across his brow as he senses the shift in the air, the quiet authority radiating from Monique challenging the assumptions he had carried with unspoken certainty. She steps forward just a fraction, enough to convey presence without intrusion, her phone held steady, a silent witness to the unfolding narrative, recording the unspoken dynamics, the pauses, the glance exchanges, the invisible negotiation of power that is now occurring in slow motion. David glances around, catching the eyes of the bystanders, sensing their attention, feeling the scrutiny that now accompanies every word and gesture, the weight of perception beginning to erode the comfort of assumed authority. Monique tilts her head slightly, the sunlight reflecting off the screen of her phone, capturing not only the image but the gravity of the moment, the careful orchestration of calm and awareness that subtly reshapes the energy of the encounter. Every line of her body communicates a silent confidence, a patient insistence on truth and clarity, while David's movements become smaller, more tentative, the invisible imbalance tipping gently but unmistakably in her favor. The asphalt glows faintly under the sunlight, the shadows of the pumps stretching long and thin, mirroring the invisible lines of tension and expectation that divide the space, each shadow and beam of light emphasizing the stakes without a single word being spoken. Monique's eyes remain locked on the sheriff's, steady, unwavering, conveying not confrontation but measured presence, a quiet insistence that the unfolding reality will not be rewritten by assumption or bias. The hum of the lot, the distant sounds of traffic, and the soft buzz from the convenience store overhead fuse into a subtle rhythm, marking each second as it stretches with anticipation, a stage set for revelation. She breathes slowly, deliberately, each inhalation drawing in awareness, each exhalation releasing the tension that has been building, as if the air itself responds to her steadiness. David shifts his gaze to the phone, realizing in an instant that the narrative he had assumed control over is being captured, cataloged, preserved, and he hesitates, the first true pause in his authority, the recognition of oversight and the undeniable presence of truth finally settling over the summer afternoon, a moment suspended in time, teetering on the edge of clarity, understanding, and the quiet but inevitable triumph of integrity that Monique embodies, leaving the gas station. Transformed, the ordinary infused with significance, and the unfolding story poised to continue in ways that will ripple far beyond this single encounter. Monique Harris takes a deliberate step back, allowing the space around her to breathe, yet her presence remains commanding, an unspoken assertion of integrity that fills the gas station and draws the attention of every bystander. Sheriff David Thompson shifts uneasily, the sunlight glinting off his badge highlighting the lines of tension etched across his face, the certainty he had relied upon dissolving into a quiet but undeniable doubt. The asphalt beneath their feet radiates the afternoon heat, mixing with the faint scent of gasoline and the occasional wisp of wind rustling through nearby trees, creating an atmosphere that feels almost tangible, charged with anticipation. Monique tilts her head slightly, a subtle movement that carries strength and awareness, the phone in her hand still recording every gesture and inflection, capturing not just words but the intricate dance of perception, presence, and authority unfolding in the lot. Around them, the ambient sounds of the station, the soft click of pumps, the low hum of air conditioning, the distant murmur of cars along the highway, form a quiet soundtrack that underscores the gravity of the moment, framing the subtle shifts in energy without distraction. David takes a slow breath, his posture shifting as he begins to recognize the imbalance of perception, the quiet power Monique exudes through patience and unwavering composure, the way her controlled calmness commands recognition without confrontation. Monique allows herself a faint, deliberate nod, a gesture that communicates confidence and awareness, an acknowledgement of the subtle but growing influence her presence exerts over the scene. Shadows stretch long across the asphalt, cast by the pumps and the vehicles, creating visual lines that echo the invisible contours of authority, doubt, and realization now at play. She steps lightly, ensuring that her movements are deliberate and purposeful, signaling that she is present, attentive, and in command of the narrative unfolding around her, even without raising her voice or demanding attention. David glances down at the phone, realizing that every nuance of his behavior, every misstep, and every assumption is being captured, cataloged, and held in silent testimony, and a pause lingers as he contemplates the implications. Monique's breathing remains steady, each inhalation and exhale. Monique Harris shifts her gaze to the horizon for a brief moment, the sunlight reflecting off the asphalt and bathing the gas station in a warm glow. Yet her attention remains fully on Sheriff David Thompson, who now stands with a subtle rigidity that hints at the weight of realization settling in, his assumptions slowly unraveling under the quiet, unwavering scrutiny of her eyes. The air is heavy with anticipation, every sound amplified, the distant rumble of tires along the highway, the faint click of the gas pumps, the soft murmur of customers moving through the convenience store, all contributing to the rhythm of the moment, each element accentuating the subtle shift in authority and awareness. Monique adjusts the grip on her phone, ensuring that the recording captures every subtle movement, every inflection, every micro-expression that will later illustrate the quiet but undeniable power of observation and integrity. She steps forward slightly, not with force, but with a measured motion that asserts presence, her calm demeanor drawing the attention of onlookers who now lean in, sensing that something extraordinary is unfolding from the simplest of encounters. David exhales, the tension evident in his shoulders, the awareness dawning that his preconceived notions, once so firmly held, are being challenged without confrontation, without loud words, solely through the careful orchestration of composure and perceptive presence. Shadows from the pumps stretch across the lot, elongating as the sun dips lower in the sky, creating visual lines that mirror the invisible contours of scrutiny and moral clarity now directing the scene. Monique's eyes remain fixed, steady, conveying a confidence that is quiet yet resonant, a silent insistence that the truth has a presence of its own, capable of redirecting the flow of perception and recalibrating assumptions. She tilts her head slightly, a gesture of subtle assertion, the faint glint of her phone catching sunlight and reflecting the careful control she maintains over the unfolding story, a story now defined not by accusation, but by awareness, observation, and patience. The hum of the lot, the distant traffic, and the soft buzz from the convenience store fuse into a backdrop that heightens the emotional intensity, emphasizing the balance between tension and resolution, between expectation and the unfolding recognition of reality. David's movements become tentative, each step measured, his hands lowering slightly, the initial rigidity giving way to a growing acknowledgement of the moment's significance, the presence of truth beginning to outweigh the weight of authority alone. Monique's breathing is deliberate, slow, resonant, syncing with the rhythm of the space and reinforcing her composed stance, while the surrounding elements, the warm asphalt underfoot, the flicker of sunlight across the pumps, the long, stretching shadows, combine to create a scene where patience, perception, and integrity converge. Every detail contributes to a crescendo of understanding. The ordinary gas station transformed into a stage for a subtle but profound reckoning. The tension resolved not through loud confrontation, but through the quiet, unassailable power of calm presence and moral clarity, leaving the moment suspended in anticipation of the eventual revelation and the reflection it will inspire in all who witnessed it. Monique Harris maintains her steady gaze on Sheriff David Thompson, each passing second a reminder that control does not always come from force, but from stillness. The tension between them thickens, the weight of the moment sinking into the asphalt beneath their feet. The warm sunlight begins to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the parking lot, stretching out like invisible lines of power, dividing them further as the time stretches on. Monique's breathing remains even, deliberate, syncing with the rhythm of the world around her, while David begins to shift his weight uncomfortably. The distant hum of traffic, the faint rustling of wind through the trees, the soft click of the gas pump, all seem to fade, as if the world is holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable shift in this standoff. Monique's posture remains unbroken, a silent assertion of control as her presence fills the space. Her hand still grips the phone, its screen reflecting the soft sunlight, silently recording every shift in David's expression, every subtle change in his posture, capturing the unraveling of the narrative he once thought he controlled. The subtle tightening of David's shoulders, the way he glances around, sensing the eyes of bystanders now fully focused on him, becomes evident. The authority he once wielded without question is now being questioned, not through confrontation, but through the quiet power of composure. His eyes flicker, betraying a moment of hesitation, the certainty that once defined him now slipping away under the weight of Monique's calm presence. The air is thick with unspoken understanding, the tension between assumption and truth, right and wrong, shifting ever so slightly in Monique's favor. David exhales. Slowly, his breath audible in the quiet, a small sign of surrender to the invisible force at play. He can feel the change, a growing recognition that the balance of power is not what it seemed. Monique steps forward just a fraction, her movement precise and intentional. It is not an approach meant to intimidate, but to affirm her presence, her role in this moment. The subtle shift in her posture communicates strength without aggression, confidence without arrogance. Her eyes never leave his, and in them, David can see the steady resolve that has shifted the atmosphere around them. It is not anger or violence that defines this exchange, but a quiet insistence on truth, on righting the wrong that was done. The shadows grow longer as the sun sinks lower, creating a visual metaphor for the growing clarity between them. The invisible divide between assumption and reality, between the accused and the accuser, becomes ever more apparent. Monique's focus sharpens, her awareness of the situation all-encompassing. She is not simply standing in a parking lot. She is standing in a moment that will define this encounter, one that will ripple outward in ways David cannot yet comprehend. She tilts her head slightly, the gesture subtle but loaded with intention, a shift in the narrative that she knows will come. The quiet tension is palpable, the stillness around them somehow louder than any spoken words could ever be. Every glance, every small adjustment in posture, every breath taken, adds weight to the unfolding reality. David's hesitation deepens. He glances once more at the phone, now fully aware that every moment, every action, every word is being documented, forever preserved. The realization hits him in that instant. His authority is no longer the sole force in play. Monique's calm confidence has taken over, and it is undeniable. The narrative he once held is slipping from his grasp, and he is powerless to stop it. The realization of his own vulnerability begins to settle in, and for the first time in this encounter, he is not the one in control. The presence of Monique Harris, unyielding in her quiet strength, has shifted the course of this moment. The truth is no longer a passive observer. It is actively rewriting the story. With every second, the weight of that truth grows heavier, and the balance between them shifts in ways that can never be undone. Monique Harris stands tall, her eyes never wavering from Sheriff David Thompson's, the weight of the moment stretching between them like a taut wire ready to snap. Every breath she takes seems to draw in the very air of the gas station, every exhale marking the passing of time with deliberate precision. The summer heat presses against them both, but Monique remains untouched by it, her focus unwavering. The sunlight reflects off the asphalt, casting long shadows that stretch across the lot, drawing lines in the sand that are impossible to ignore. The phone in her hand, still recording, captures every fleeting expression, every subtle shift in David's posture, every crack in the armor he had built so carefully around himself. David's body language has shifted, his shoulders tense, his posture stiff and unnatural as he attempts to reclaim control of the situation. He is no longer the confident sheriff who strode into this encounter with an air of authority. Now, he is the one under scrutiny, caught in the web of his own assumptions. The quiet murmur of bystanders, the soft hum of the air conditioning from the convenience store, the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze, all of it becomes part of the backdrop to this still, intense moment. Monique's gaze sharpens, her eyes locking onto his with a force that is felt rather than seen. Her presence is magnetic, and in that moment, she becomes the center of everything. She steps forward just a fraction, her movements slow, deliberate, calculated. It is not an aggressive motion, but one that asserts her position in this exchange, subtly shifting the balance of power once again. David glances around, his eyes darting briefly to the bystanders who are now fully engaged, watching the scene unfold with a quiet intensity. He can feel their gaze upon him, the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on him, and he realizes, as the seconds stretch on, that the authority he once wielded so easily is no longer his to claim. The shadows grow longer as the sun sinks lower in the sky, the light shifting in a way that mirrors the changing dynamic between them. The divide between the two of them, the assumptions, the biases, the judgments, seems to grow wider, not in volume, but in clarity. Monique remains steadfast, her every action speaking volumes without a word. The confidence she exudes is not loud, it is not brash, it is quiet, controlled, and undeniably present. David's movements have slowed, his earlier urgency now replaced with a tentative hesitation. He knows the narrative he once controlled is slipping away, no longer in his hands. Monique's breathing remains steady, a calm rhythm that matches the steady pulse of the gas station around them. She is fully present, fully aware, and fully in control. Every gesture, every shift in posture, every glance she gives is a reminder of the power of quiet strength, the kind that does not demand attention but commands it. The tension in the air is palpable, the stakes higher than ever, and yet there is no shouting, no confrontation. It is the tension of a moment where truth begins to speak louder than assumption, where integrity has a presence that cannot be ignored. David's hesitation becomes more pronounced, his hand dropping slowly from his side as the full weight of the situation settles in. Monique's eyes never leave his, and in them, he sees something that he has not seen in anyone before, someone who does not need to raise their voice to be heard. Someone who is not afraid of the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. The sun casts its final golden rays across the parking lot, and in the fading light, Monique stands at the center of it all, a silent force of authority and clarity. David, for the first time in this encounter, feels the shift. The balance of power has changed, and he knows, without a doubt, that he is no longer the one in control. Monique, with her quiet presence, has taken over the moment, and in doing so, she has turned the gas station, a place of mundane transactions, into a stage for something much larger, a reckoning that will leave a lasting impact on everyone present. The truth has been recorded, captured, and now it will unfold in its own time, as inevitable as the setting sun. Monique Harris stands poised, her gaze steady and unwavering, the weight of every moment stretching between her and Sheriff David Thompson. The gas station around them remains quiet, the ordinary sounds of passing cars, the low hum of the convenience store air conditioning, and the occasional click of the gas pump, all blending into the background. In the midst of this quiet, Monique's calm presence commands the space. Every second that passes is a reminder of the shift in power, of how perception can change with the slightest change in energy. David's posture remains rigid, his earlier confidence slipping away with each passing second. His breath is shallow, his mind racing, trying to regain control of the situation, but the moment is beyond him. Monique, on the other hand, remains a steady force, her composure the anchor in the storm of doubt and confusion swirling within David. She takes a deliberate step back, allowing the space between them to grow, but it is not a retreat. It is a statement. She does not need to press forward to assert her dominance. Her presence alone is enough. The shadows from the pumps stretch longer now, casting an almost symbolic divide between them. Monique's gaze shifts slightly, not out of any sign of aggression, but as a quiet assertion of control. The phone in her hand remains steady, still recording, capturing everything. The weight of the situation is captured in each subtle movement, every shift in posture, every flicker of doubt on David's face. He knows that he is being watched, that every moment is being preserved, and that there will be no escaping the truth of what is unfolded here. The heat from the pavement rises, mixing with the thick scent of gasoline in the air, adding to the intensity of the moment. The sun continues to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the lot, the light filtering through the trees, adding a surreal quality to the encounter. Monique, undisturbed, stands at the center of it all, a steady force, unshaken by the tension that fills the air. Her breathing is measured, steady, as though she is in complete control of the moment, of herself, and of the narrative that is unfolding. David glances around, feeling the eyes of the bystanders upon him, the weight of their scrutiny now palpable. He shifts his stance, his body language betraying his uncertainty. The role he once played, the role of the sheriff in control, is slipping away. The authority he thought he wielded is no longer enough to command respect. He feels the shift, the balance of power tilting in a way he can't reverse. Monique's quiet confidence has become a force in and of itself, reshaping the dynamic between them. Her eyes never leave his. There is no need for words. Her gaze is enough to convey everything that needs to be said. The truth is here, present and undeniable, and it is no longer something that can be ignored or silenced. The world around them continues to move, but in this moment, it feels as though everything has stopped. Monique's presence is the anchor, the still point around which everything else revolves. David, for the first time in this encounter, feels the weight of the situation. He realizes that no matter how much he tries to regain control, no matter how many times he shifts his stance or adjusts his posture, it is too late. The truth, captured on Monique's phone, is all that matters now. And in that truth, the balance of power has shifted irrevocably. The gas station, once a simple, ordinary place, has become the stage for a much larger reckoning, one that will not be defined by the loudness of accusations or the force of authority, but by the quiet strength of patience, the power of observation, and the unwavering presence of truth. As the sun sets, casting the parking lot in a soft, golden light, Monique stands at the center of it all, the calm in the storm. Her role in this encounter solidified, her purpose clear. David, still standing, slowly begins to realize that this moment will define him, not by his actions, but by the actions of the one who remained calm, the one who refused to be moved, and the one who held the truth in her hands. The moment is suspended, not in anger or frustration, but in the quiet, undeniable power of what has just transpired.